45. Yeah, you can start streaming. We'll get started here in just a second. I think Aaron Booker's about the only one I see missing on it.
Brad Lindmark's not on, is he?
Yep, you're right.
Does he know to get on?
I told him about it last week.
Good, good, good.
I'll text him now.
Mr. McCarthy, you're muted.
There we go.
Welcome, Kevin.
So how's the First Lady of the Republican Caucus doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much.
Good.
You hear anything back from him, Paul?
Paul's muted, it looks like.
Sorry.
Yeah, he shook his head no.
Yeah, I texted him the link and I told him it was emailed them to him also, but he has not responded yet.
Well, he might have had a conflict.
Yeah. All right, so we are recording. We'll get the Republican Caucus meeting started. Called to order November 16th at 6:02 p.m. We'll start off with roll call. Fred Westcott.
Present.
Gene Crosby.
Here.
Paul Arena.
Here.
Jazz Village.
Here.
Dave Kelly.
Here.
John Butita.
Here.
Jim Webster.
Here.
Steve Schultz.
He's here.
Yeah, I saw him. Thank you. Kevin McCarthy.
Here.
Thanks, Steve. And Kevin McCarthy is also present. The only ones missing thus far is Aaron Booker and Brad Lindmark.
Right. And Brad did respond. He said he did not receive the email, but he said he'd join on phone. So hopefully we'll see him here shortly. There he is.
There he is. You with us, Brad? Can you hear us yet?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
All right. So Mr. Booker's the only one we have missing thus far. So we're down to section D, selection of caucus officers. So it's mandated we go through this. As I indicated a couple caucuses ago that I'm no longer interested in running for the position. I just don't have the time during my day job to do it properly. One person who I think has done a good job, stepped to the plate, and has really chased down a lot of things for me so far is Paul Arena. And I'd like to jump right in and nominate Paul Arena for the caucus chair.
I'll second that.
I would second that.
We got a second by Mr. Zintek, Webster, and Billich. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact,
you know, can I?
And
yeah, what I want to just really quickly clarify is, Mr. Zintek, I don't believe you have a vote in this because you're an outgoing
okay.
member and Brad's in.
No, he's got a vote. The incoming have a vote. The outgoing don't have a vote.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Mr. Zintek does not have a vote in this.
Yes, yeah, no, right. Thank you. You're
Yeah.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr.
Can I-
Webster, you had a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. First of all, Keith, thanks for stepping up when you did, because it was pretty abrupt, as we all know, when Boomer took a vacation on us. So, that fell upon you pretty quickly there. I know you didn't have any prior warning either. So thanks for doing what you've done. And I appreciate what your nomination was for Paul. That's why I was quick to second that. I think he's done so well. I hope that you would consider staying on as vice chair, Keith. I would nominate you for vice chair.
I appreciate that, and I would be interested in that. I think let's get through the chair, then we'll go to the other two positions. Is that okay?
Fine with me.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to point out, I think Mr. Butita is also absent.
Nope, he's right there. I see him. He's waving at me, at us.
I didn't see him.
He's sneaky sometimes. All right, is there any, I've made the nomination of Mr. Arena, Mr. Webster, and Mr. Billich also second that. Is there any other discussion for Mr. Arena? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed to Mr. Arena becoming the caucus chair? Seeing none, I would like to now hand the meeting over to Mr. Arena to run since he is the current caucus chair. Mr. Arena, it's all yours. Thank you for your help.
Well, thank you, Mr. McDonald, and thank you all for having confidence in me to put me in this position, and I look forward to it, and I think we're all going to have a good next 2 years. So thank you all. So with that being said, we'll entertain a nomination for vice chair. Mr. Webster?
Yeah, I would nominate Keith.
Okay. And a second by Mr. Billich, Mr. Butita, and Mr. Kelly, I believe,
Fred also.
and Mr. Westcott. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. McDonald would be vice chair.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your confidence.
And now we need a secretary.
I nominate Dave Kelly. He's been
I'll
our
second that.
secretary for how many years? I don't know.
I'll second it.
Since 2012.
There you go.
I have the archive. I got
Yes, you
it
do.
sitting on my desk. 8 years of recordings of these meetings.
Okay, well, that's a great legacy. So we have a motion for Mr. Kelly as secretary. Can I have a second? Mr. Butita, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Billich, Mr. McDonald. Any discussion?
Make any more errors.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Mr. Kelly is our secretary. So with that, we pretty quickly here have taken care of our main order of business. Does anyone have any other matters to discuss tonight? Mr. McDonald.
Aaron Booker just joined.
All right, let the record reflect Mr. Booker has joined the meeting.
It's some time to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Arena. My question is, I know that we've got this emergency declaration. I think Thursday night we're meeting just about the emergency declaration. Maybe now that Mr. Booker's here, anyone that can speak more to it. What's driving this? What do we get by declaring another emergency? How does it help us?
I see Dr. Martell is on this call. Dr. Martell, can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you. The emergency declaration we had, as the county, you had let expire, and we were beginning to have to request additional emergency supplies that are both federal and state assets. And one of the conditions and concerns is you should have an emergency declaration then as part of your local unit of government. So as our hospitals have surged and requested bed setups, ventilators, and staffing through the federal assets, you would need to have a correlating piece that says that you have declared an emergency in your county so that those emergency supplies are justified. It also puts you in place then if you need additional reimbursement and federal grants to obtain emergency supplies that you've got access to those. So we're not doing this because we did not need that or did not require it. We had only needed the assets. And so again, felt that it was time to put that in place for you to consider as a county board.
Mr. McDonald, follow up?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I understand the need for the hospital beds. If I saw it in the media properly, that's the main driver of this emergency declaration. My hang up is hospitals are for-profit institutions. How is our governmental emergency declaration affect their for-profit operations?
I don't believe any of our 3 hospitals are for-profit.
Dr. Martell is correct.
And so I come back to, again, I would say that at this point, when you talk about this, they're not charging at this point. We're, as we look at testing, as we look at the capacity of any of our region, that currently, and your insurance companies and things like this, but here's the bottom line. At the end of the day, whether they're for-profit or not for-profit, and they need to expand beds, right now the market, they can't get beds in the open market. So for instance, Swedish American is putting beds in all kinds of areas, hallways, conference rooms. They're holding them in the emergency departments. The challenge is that they've got to get individuals who are coming in, as you well know, as a first responder, off the rig carts so they can get them back out into the field. And individuals are, I mean, the capacity in these hospitals, they're surging to meet the needs or demands. I don't think that we would consider this luxury care. It is essential care that they are providing. Anyone who can be discharged is being discharged home. They also requested additional ventilators. They did not have ventilator capacity. They were at this point very concerned. As of this morning, not one of our hospitals had an ICU bed open. So they began to convert their med surg units into ICU units, which require additional. So I understand you might have a concern about, what their profit margins are or not, but the fact of the matter is we had a need for additional healthcare resources in our community. We also have had to make a request, our more capacity. As of the weekend, we usually have capacity for 62 is up to almost 50, and they were picking up another 12 today. So they are at capacity as well. This is part of the response in a pandemic. This is not something that we normally would want to see at any given time, but there are activation of resources that we need to get to be able to and be able to get our reimbursement for as well. So a declaration does not give us any additional authority or powers except to say that the situation is such that we may need to activate additional federal and state assets and resources.
Mr. McDonald, any further question?
Good for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to jump in if I could.
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just wanted to add that I knew nothing about the declaration until I read about it in the paper the next day, and it was never approached or brought up in a public safety committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. So, Dr. Martell, the county is actually going to be purchasing these items, bed sets, ventilators, or just our declaration facilitates the hospital to make the purchase?
No, we don't purchase any of this. We borrow them from the assets. We request them out of the assets of the federal and state. So we are not purchasing ventilators. We're not purchasing beds. We are essentially, I'm going to say, taking them out of the lending library.
Okay, I don't think that was clear to anyone. It was, because in the past, it was our understanding that we were buying like PPE and all that stuff. This is different then.
That is different. You may also have to purchase personal protective equipment, but that's not what we requested. We requested what we call ventilators out of the assets, as well as the bed set, what we call bed setups, which include oxygen, the bed itself, and then also we did put in a request for what they call the DMAT team, which I think Mr. McDonald and both Mr. Booker should be familiar with. That's the disaster medical assistance team to be able to provide some additional staffing in the hospitals for the additional beds, including the Rockton Avenue campus.
All right, I understand. Thank you for that clarification. Is there any other questions on this? And Mr. Booker, I believe we have a public safety meeting scheduled now for Thursday, just before the board meeting, to go through the process.
Yes, Chairman, I just saw that, I just got that email at 5:42, I don't know, just 30 minutes ago. I have no idea what's on the agenda, what the topic is or anything. Did you get the email at about the same time?
Yeah, I sometime this afternoon I saw it. It was later today.
Okay, yeah, I got it at 5:42. So I have no idea what the meeting is scheduled for.
Okay, so the meeting, if I recall correctly, the only thing on the agenda is approval of this disaster declaration.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I'm sorry.
I said I believe the only thing on the agenda is approval of the disaster declaration for public safety, and then we'll just have a emergency board meeting or a special board meeting to finalize it.
Right.
Mr.
Okay.
Billich,
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
you're welcome. Mr. Billich, go ahead.
Just, I guess, a question for Dr. Martell. I don't know if you maybe know why or what the timeline there is, just for clarification as far as why such a short timeline. Obviously, I'm not negating the necessity or something like that. I'm just saying, why wasn't it an opportunity to maybe have followed a due process where we would have had a meeting maybe last week and we would have known about it in advance? Just for point of clarification, I guess I'm just expanding on Mr. Booker's question there. I'm just kind of wondering how just the conversation is starting to go into this direction. I'm just wondering why we're under the gun as far as putting all these meetings real quick just within this weekend, the special meeting and everything just announced right before the weekend. So.
Sure, and that's a fair question, because those assets had already been requested. And when we looked, we did not have an active disaster declaration in place. Ours had expired. Other counties have left theirs open through the pandemic, but you had a sunset in yours. So that's why we recognized we had to go back in and open that back up, because we were requesting the asset.
Billich, go ahead, follow up.
Just as a follow-up, but wasn't the one that actually had a sunset clause actually the disaster declaration that we had? I do believe we passed the disaster declaration that extended out, but it was only in regards to the powers that were set and the change that we had as far as the rules for obviously during this COVID pandemic in regards to our health department. Am I not correct on that?
No, I had the state's attorney check before because it was not in the active status.
Yeah, I believe they were each done on a 45 days at a time, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Martell? I did, at Mr. McDonald's suggestion, I checked with Senator Severson, because he's on the board of a hospital, and just to ask him, what he knew about this, before we got this information. And he put me on the phone with a gentleman representing Mercy Health, and he confirmed what Dr. Martell just told us, that they have an immediate need for this equipment and that they're reaching capacity, and the situation is expected to worsen in early December. So I think that this is necessary. Is there any other questions on this matter? Okay, so just to move on and let everybody know, our next thing that we have to resolve is our rules of procedure for the county board moving forward. And one of the things that we've discussed, that I discussed with Chairman-elect Shirelli and Mr. Thompson, was the timelines that we work on. And I think, the comments that were made here tonight were about how this particular matter got pushed through quickly. Now, this has a legitimate urgency, but I think we've all experienced over the last couple of years, a lot of stuff comes through in a very hurried manner without us having a lot of details in advance. And that, I think, is going to be one of the key things in our rules of procedure that we're going to address. They require that final versions of ordinances and resolutions are delivered to the board by 5 p.m. on Friday. And if the final version is not ready at that time, then it'll wait for the next cycle. So I just wanted you to know that that's one of the key things that we're working on. And I'll be sending out a draft of whatever we come up with on rules of procedure so we can all talk about it before we actually have to approve them at our first meeting in December.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious when we say that the final resolution has to be presented as of Friday at 5 o'clock. Is that inclusive of it having come through committee by that same time?
No, the Friday prior to committee week. So if it's going to be in committee the following week, then Friday, when we get that agenda for committees, all of the resolutions and ordinances, along with a red line version if it's change of existing law, and a short summary of what it's about, to be delivered to all the board members at that time. Whether you're on the committee or not, we should all be able to see it so we can know what's coming up. If it's a matter that's important to you, even if you're not on the committee, you should be aware of it so that you can participate in the committee and ask questions if you have questions.
So does that mean by definition that we will not have committee meetings the week of a county board meeting with items on that county board meeting's agenda?
As under our normal operating procedure, we should not. So any of these items are part of our rules of procedure, and we have the ability to suspend rules. So what we're looking for is we have normal procedures that have that timeline. And if something came up that was an emergency, like we have with this emergency declaration, we would just have a vote to suspend the rules so we could do stuff the week of. But I think as much as possible, we should not be having committee meetings the week of our county board meeting. And
Yeah,
I should say, go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, I'm in strong support of that. I've always been very opposed to items coming in to committees the week of the county board meeting and also being on the agenda for that week's county board meeting.
Right. And
Here, here.
and just so everyone knows, it was Chairman-elect Shirelli was talking about, they had the same problem at the Rockford City Council, and he said that they passed a similar ordinance there to accomplish the same thing we're talking about accomplishing. So he is also completely on board, as is Mr. Thompson.
Great. Sounds good.
Are there any other matters that anyone would like to bring up before the caucus tonight? Mr. Butita.
There we go. Well, I know the new chairman's anxious to adjourn and get to the Bear game, but let me, what's the game plan, Paul, as far as the committee structure and putting those together? What's the game plan on that?
Thank you for reminding me. I'll need all of you to let me know, if you want to change committees. I've talked to Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Lindmark a little bit about coming on as new board members where they'd like to be. If anyone would like to change or move around, please let me know. I spoke with Mr. Hoffman. He's still the Democratic chair. He and I will meet and take a look at everything. And then he suggested we just meet as a joint caucus, under a joint caucus, and all of us discuss it and make sure we're all good with the committee assignments. And then we'll ratify that at our first meeting. So I would expect that to happen during the course of this week and then have that June caucus meeting next week. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Webster, Kelly, Westcott, Schultz, you guys have been on longer than I have. But if I remember properly, at this meeting when we used to meet in person, we would write down our top 3 committees that we desired to be on, kind of in order. That way the caucus chairs have some idea on what to go by. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes, we had, formerly we did it similar to that. When I first got on board, it puts out a sheet of paper there, said what committees are you interested in serving on? And the second question on there was, are you interested in chairing a committee? And that was it. And then the caucuses got copies of that, who wanted to be on what. And it's kind of informal, about like it is now, I think, and kind of indicate what you got interest in. And tried to, back in the day, and I think we should still do the same, try to accommodate people where they want to be. And so if you have absolutely no interest in being on a certain committee, there's no point in sticking you on a committee that you don't like and you're not going to attend, you know, or have no intention of attending committee meetings. So try to find something that really interests you. And obviously now, committees like, what is it? Is it Economic Development has 9 people on that committee, I believe.
Yes, and that's too many.
That's too many, correct. So try to avoid doing that and getting real top heavy on any one of the committees there. Can you pass there on committee, like zoning, for example? We've had difficulty trying to get people to remain on that committee, even though they've done a very good job. I was talking to someone today, matter of fact, that mentioned Aaron Booker and what a great job he did on zoning. How come he left you? And to Aaron's credit, he did do a great job. But he had an interest in public safety and whatever else. And I would welcome Aaron to come back because Dan is leaving. So Aaron, if you want to come back, come on over, brother.
All right. Sounds real good to me, Jim. Thank you.
Yes, because the hotbed of activity is District 1 and District 2. And
yeah, it feels like it. Exactly.
Yes. So I'd appreciate the help there. Thank you.
All right.
Can we text you, Paul, what committees we're interested in, or email?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Crosby. So everyone, please keep that. We'll use that same format. Send me an email or a text with your 3 choices in order of preference, and then also if you'd like to be considered for a committee chair. Although my conversations with Mr. Hoffman, pretty much, you know, we thought we'd keep the committee chairs as they were. However, other people may have interest, and you know, we'll certainly consider it if you'd like to be one. Mr. Billich, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just adding into what Mr. Webster said. We did have 9. Paul did end up switching from economic development, or got off of economic development, so it brought us down to 8. But yes, you're right. It is a very high number still. Yes.
Right. I think we should try to keep them at 7 a committee.
It would appear 7 is the magic number, really.
Right.
I agree.
And then also in your email, you know, when I first came on, or actually right now still, I'm on 3 committees. I don't know who else is. If you could let me know if you would serve on 3, that'd be good to know. If you want it to just be 2, let me know that also. Okay. Are there any other matters for the caucus tonight? Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second by Mr. Butita and Mr. Webster. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Enjoy the Bears game.
Thank you and stay safe.
Good night.
Thank
all.
you.
All right.
Participating, Dr. Martell.